Love it or hate it, Treyarch are definitely playing their cards right with Black Ops 6 Zombies. Now, I myself, even as someone who is a long-term hardcore fan of the mode, am actually very optimistic about Black Ops 6 Zombies after doing my research. I made a video a little while ago talking about whether or not you should pre-order Black Ops 6, where I talked about the pros and cons of the game mode from what we knew at that point. And we'll go over some of those points again just to refresh, but there has been some new pieces of intel that have dropped directly from Treyarch themselves that definitely spell a positive light ahead for the future of Black Ops 6 Zombies. So first, let's refresh our minds with the positives that we already know about. Now, obviously, as we know, this is a return to round-based zombies, and as most people, including myself, don't even think about Vanguard Shinanuma, this is the first time we're heading back to round-based zombies since Cold War. It has been 4 years, 4 very, very long years since we got a game that debuted with proper round-based maps again. And it's been 6 long years since the release of Black Ops 4, where we last saw an original crew in Zombies, which is finally being brought back as a feature in Black Ops 6. And then there's a bunch of other things we know about, quality of life stuff like being able to save and quit your game, having Easter eggs go back to the kind of hardcore roots, and a directed Cold War-esque mode releasing later, things like that, and all of the rewards and unlocks that we already know about up to this point. And of course, in the last 24 hours, there was that colossal blog post, which we'll also lightly be touching on, as well as a podcast that dropped recently that had a lot of juicy intel. Now, we're going to go over the details in a light way. We're not going to deep dive. We'll save that for another video. But more so in this video, we'll be focusing primarily on the implications that all of the lead up to launch has on the future of this game, because Treyarch are definitely playing their cards right in terms of keeping us in the loop and keeping us informed as zombie fans in a way that we haven't seen before. So a quick recap for those who aren't exactly in the loop. You may remember that the COD Next gameplay that we saw of Legitti Falls lacked any kind of soul, and people were up in arms about it because it just simply didn't carry the essence of zombies and just felt a lot like a section of a potential Warzone map with some zombies in it. It didn't have that flair. It didn't carry atmosphere. And so thankfully, in the podcast and the recent blog post from Treyarch, they've made some heavy adjustments, not only to the visual tone of the map to make it moodier, in their words, but they've also made adjustments to the sound design, particularly with environmental audio. And I recently made a video talking about how environmental audio goes such a long way in delivering the essence of this great mode. Treyarch went on to state that they've upped the creepiness factor in this map, and with screenshots, they might not do it complete justice compared to actual gameplay, but we can definitely see there's been a shift and a more kind of gloomy overtone to the visual design of Legitti Falls, which hopefully should convey a lot more of a chilling and immersive atmosphere. And not only that, but the other major change that they announced in the podcast and have now shown us with this recent blog post is that they have revised the HUD, which is a big deal to a lot of people, including myself. Now, initially, I wasn't too worried because I did see a leak on Twitter that kind of seemed to display a fully fledged HUD editor in which you could completely scale and move around and disable and change pretty much any element of the HUD freely, which was really cool. But we don't really know if we're getting that at launch anymore. It doesn't seem like we will be based on what we're seeing. But in terms of the HUD changes they have made, there is some brilliant features that I'm so happy to hear about. Now, first off, you can change the opacity and outright disable the minimap. This is huge for making the HUD look way cleaner than it is. And not only that, you can disable the score feed as well as the medals and notifications. So for those like me, like many other people who saw that kill chain on screen as just an intrusive, horrendous UI design that kind of just made you feel like you're playing multiplayer, you can 100% get rid of it. Not only that, but they've also updated certain widgets to be zombified. I presume that's things like the kill streaks and the gobblegums, which kind of look like score streaks from multiplayer in terms of UI design, and they've now designed zombie specific widgets, which is cool. And they've also adjusted to positions, added character portraits, and a lot more. Overall, a very, very positive change. But like I say, this video is less focused on these changes and more so focused on what these changes imply for the future of the mode, because again, the future is looking very bright here once I get into the details. But just to recap a little bit further, on top of all of this, Kevin Drew has doubled down on the statement that the team is entirely focused on round-based zombies. So it's been implied that with the DLC roadmap ahead, there are no immediate plans for anything that isn't round-based zombies. All efforts are being poured into that style of gameplay, which is exactly what everyone wanted to hear, because for the longest time now, we felt like Treyarch's efforts should have always been in round-based zombies, and these extra modes like Outbreak and MWZ were cool. Don't get me wrong, they were cool, but in hindsight, I think the vast majority of the community would have much rather had all of Treyarch's resources for zombies being poured into round-based content, which is exactly what they're doing. And in light of that, it was confirmed that the third round-based zombies map would not only drop by the end of the year, which we already knew at that point, but apparently it will be around season 1, which, you know, is slated for November. So that is kind of colossal to be able to play a third round-based map within a month potentially of the game releasing is pretty wild to think about. Now, going off track for a brief period of time here, if you want my opinion, I actually speculate that this third map that we're getting is actually intended originally to be the second round-based map. If I could picture Treyarch, you know, kind of being up against the wall with time pressure in getting this game out, and they were already planning on having 2 round-based maps at launch, it's quite likely that Liberty Falls is the birth of needing a map executed quickly. This is complete speculation, by the way, but it would just kind of make sense in my head, because they, you know, they pitched that Liberty Falls is happening at the same time as Terminus, and that's why we can't, you know, play as the crew in that map, because they're busy in Terminus. And also, you know, kind of would explain why the map itself is heavily inspired in design to the kind of stuff we've seen for multiplayer and campaign, and that when we saw it at COD Next, it was barely zombified at all. If, you know, it kind of all ties together that potentially this third map that we're getting as DLC was supposed to be the second launch map, but Liberty Falls kind of came in as a buffer whilst they still had to take more time to work on whatever this upcoming map is. I mean, to be fair, a West Virginia zombies map was teased in the past, but I feel like Liberty Falls was easier to get ready, and that these 2 maps must have traded places. Just my theory. However, doesn't change the fact that having 3 round-based maps by the end of the year and potentially by the end of November is a very, very strong positive. The other thing that they touched on in this podcast is that zombie fans can expect more support for in-game events versus previous Black Ops games. Now, this is open to interpretation, but I'm pretty sure what they mean by this is that when there's been like community events or, you know, a special camo unlock or stuff like that, normally the multiplayer fans get to have a field day, and zombie fans are pretty much forced to switch to multiplayer to earn some of these special event items. Now, it's sounding like with zombies this time, we're going to be able to do just as much as they can, maybe even get some exclusive events of our own. Open to interpretation again, but the simple translation is it sounds like they're making a conscious effort to not have zombie fans feel left out in anything that happens for this game, which alone is a very strong positive yet again. And the last thing that was confirmed on this podcast, which I definitely want to touch on because it is music to my ears, quite literally, and that is Kevin Sherwood returns to deliver Easter egg tracks. Now, respect to Kevin Sherwood, the utmost respect to Kevin Sherwood here. I'm not a fan of what we got in Cold War where it comes to original Easter egg music. Maybe that's just my taste. I much prefer the original heavier style of stuff that we got in the eras of Black Ops 1 through Black Ops 3, but we will see what happens. But either way, I'm very happy to see Kevin Sherwood returns, because even with things like round change music or other, you know, gritty musical pieces that we've seen in Zombies, Kevin Sherwood has been responsible for a lot of the best ones. And, you know, either way, I'm excited. But now, pulling all of this information together, let's talk about what it translates to. First off, the HUD changes and the changes made to Liberty Falls are all occurring pre-launch. I mean, this is important to note down here, because what this means is not only have Treyarch listened to fans with regards to, you know, what we've missed about zombies, bringing back round-based maps, making sure we're included in community events, feeling included in the marketing, the blog posts, everything, not feeling left out, and taking our feedback and honestly applying it to the game that we genuinely want to succeed, despite how toxic this community can be. They're also consciously listening as we're going towards the road to launch. I don't think we've seen this much marketing for any zombies in Call of Duty history. We've never been kept this much in the loop with blog posts and updates about the game, and we've never been so included before with things like even the reveal of the game. Typically, like in the past, there'll be like a big live stream, they call out all these multiplayer YouTubers to play multiplayer for like 6-7 hours straight, and then after all that waiting, we'll get maybe 30 seconds, a tiny little B-roll of a potential zombies map, and we're just left to sit on that for a while. This time around, they've invited zombie YouTubers to go play the game. They've pushed out gameplay before the game is even out, talked about how the game mode works, what's returning, what's changing. They've literally broken down everything for us, and this level of communication has not been seen in the past, and changing the game based on community feedback before launch is an incredible milestone towards returning this game mode to what it should be. There's always going to be people who see what Black Ops 6 is and complain that it's not Black Ops 3 and complain that it's not Black Ops 1. And trust me, as a fan of Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 3, my two favorite zombies games, I hear you. There's still things about Black Ops 6 that even I am just like, this is wrong. This isn't right. Things like the salvage system, I hate it. Things like the point system, I hate it. But Treyarch are listening. We can't deny that anymore. It's finally at a point where Treyarch are letting the community take the wheel a bit, which is huge, and also kind of links heavily to that leak that dropped regarding a potential classic mode for this game. Now, this is a leak. This isn't like the other things I've touched on that are like genuinely confirmed from Treyarch, but I did make a video talking about this leak, and apparently there is potential for a classic mode to be coming to Zombies, which, you know, we could theorize would bring things like the old point system back and removing the unnecessary things like the scrap system and all of that kind of annoying stuff that we don't really like from Cold War. But again, we don't know how true this leak actually is, or if it's cut content, or if it will ever arrive. But hearing how Treyarch is responding to fan feedback and taking the criticism on the shoulder and making the necessary adjustments, I can believe that this might be something that we do see in the future, this classic mode, which is something I was pushing for the longest time. I remember talking about how there should be a core and hardcore playlist. This sounds kind of like that, and if it happens, I'd be beyond happy. But the whole message of this point I'm trying to make is that Treyarch is listening, and Treyarch is letting us take the wheel a bit. This bodes very well for the future of the game mode, because again, a lot can happen post-launch with Black Ops 6 Zombies, and what I personally am praying is the case is that Treyarch no longer makes zombies for any COD game that's led by a different studio. So, you know, things like Vanguard Zombies and Modern Warfare Zombies just wouldn't exist. Don't let them repeat that mistake. Now, I'm hoping that because Microsoft is now in control of Activision, that they may see things a very similar way. And it's not unrealistic to hope this, considering how dramatically different the road to launch has been with Black Ops 6 versus previous titles. There's clearly been a dramatic shift regarding how they treat zombies as a mode and the zombie fan base. And it's a positive shift as well. So if they play their cards right more, what we should see is that Black Ops 6 Zombies releases and we get steady updates and new content brought to Black Ops 6 right up until Treyarch's next game, whether that's Black Ops 7, World at War 2, whatever it may be. But ideally, efforts are poured into Black Ops 6 and future Modern Warfare games, future Advanced Warfare, whatever new CODs are on the horizon, Treyarch just is left alone to publish content for the games that they're working on. Now, given how things have been on the road to launch, I'm pretty convinced that when Black Ops 6 launches, the community are obviously going to have a lot of things to say. There's going to be a lot of feedback. There's going to be a lot of haters. But I think within those haters, there'll be some genuinely good points, like the ones that was made regarding the tone of Liberty Falls and the dire HUD situation for BO3 Zombies. Now, all of these actions that Treyarch are taking lead me to believe that any negative feedback that comes from the Zombies community after this game launches is going to be taken seriously, and it's going to be addressed promptly. Again, if they've made changes to a map before it's even out based on feedback from COD Next, I'm pretty confident that we're going to see a lot of changes made if the community stays vocal and stays rational. From their marketing, it almost feels like Treyarch feels indebted to us. That might seem like an exaggeration, but you know, with the little Easter eggs of Kevin Drew in the Zombies reveal having, you know, the book of Black Ops 3 underneath the book of how to take constructive feedback, they're clearly sending a message that, you know, they hear us and they're putting that into action. And I've said this about about 1,000 times already. But so long as the community band together, stay rational, and give feedback, we could see this game shape into something truly great. Now, the other important question is, how frequently are we going to see DLC maps come to Zombies in BO6? Because it's all well and good for them to promise us a third round-based map before the end of the year. But then, if that's the case, how long are we going to be waiting for the fourth? Now, typically in the past, with pretty much most game developers, not just COD ones, DLC content is started even before the game is actually out. At least early versions of it, or concepts, alpha builds, whatever. But for them to drop the third DLC map so confidently, so early, would imply that they have a lot of maps planned. Now, would this spring into a year 2 of content? That's a question for another day. But my point is, Treyarch are prepared. They know what maps are going to be planned ahead for the future of BO6 Zombies. And so making a conscious and deliberate effort to let fans know that we'll be getting a DLC map really early in this game's life implies to me that they're confident they'll be able to follow it up without leaving us starved for content for too long. And if that's the case, we are really in for something exciting, because I do think Treyarch would know better than to organize their DLC in such a way that we're left with like a 3 to 4 month gap between maps, because they know at that point the community would be bored and that it would actually be worse for Black Ops 6 to do that than to just have the third DLC map drop in January. So I think it's fair to assume that we won't have to worry about being starved for content here. And so then if you take everything that we're talking about and blend it all together, the things that are bad about Black Ops 6 are really things that could be changed with the introduction of a classic mode. Because when I think about Black Ops 6, and the only reservations I have against being completely and utterly excited for it are things like the HUD, which is being addressed, the lack of atmosphere in Liberty Falls, which is being addressed, but then it's things like the scrap system, the point system, like I said, and the armor system as well. If Treyarch could find a way to not completely remove these features, because again, I know there are Cold War fans out there who like these things, but introduce this leaked classic mode or just some kind of alternative, some kind of way to satisfy both audiences, then Black Ops 6 really has nothing to complain about, at least when it comes to launch content. Of course, post-launch, there's potential for all manner of things to go right or wrong. There could be a huge gap between maps that leave us completely bored. There could be like a sudden drop in communication where they're just not taking feedback at all and basically just ignoring us again. There's all kinds of potential things, but as all we have to go on is the road to launch under Microsoft leading Activision, everything is really coming up positive. Of course, there's always going to be people that argue that all of these positives are before launch to encourage you to buy the game, only to be disappointed about what actually happens after it comes out. And I mean, those people aren't wrong to feel that skeptical. We have been done dirty in the past, and so I guess it's really open to interpretation. But I, for one, am very excited for Black Ops 6, and hopefully more of the community can kind of snap out of this delusion that it's automatically bad because it's just not Black Ops 3 2, because I'd love to see this community thrive again. And Black Ops 6 is the best chance in a while that we've had for that to happen. But we'll see what these changes to Liberty Falls look like, as well as the HUD changes as well, because to be fair, if the changes to Liberty Falls are next to nothing and the HUD changes are just some tiny little bits of blood here and there, then it's fair to say that we're cooked. But until then, I'm choosing to stay optimistic. Treyarch are definitely playing their cards right with communicating to us as fans and making a positive impact and a positive change compared to what we've seen in the past. This is the first time we've seen Zombies get this much attention, I think ever, in terms of a pre-launch campaign. And so hopefully that level of passion echoes into the gameplay as well as the post-launch content. But thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.